So good morning again from Kampala to UBC here on Nile Avenue. When we come to you at this moment with the Pan-African program, the Pan-African Friday program that looks at different issues concerning this beautiful continent of Africa, its people and its wealth. In the studio today I have Dr. Wanzala with me. But also, for quite some time, of course, people have been asking me, where is a call, where is a call? People are calling, asking for a call. Leo mtampata ni mwenye ambao ako hapa na mtamuona wakati wake ukifika. Lakini people were missing you. It is good you are here today. So we are looking at the developments on this continent, but of course, including outside of this continent, with ramifications far-reaching on the future and the present of the African continent. And to begin with, let me introduce Ndugu Wanzala. Ndugu Wanzala, you're welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mtuta. It's always good to be here. And good morning to our esteemed viewers. It's a pleasure and looking forward to 2 hours of engagement.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Karibu. Ndugu Akol.
Yeah, thank you, Comrade Mtuta, for extending an invitation to me so that really we can actually look at issues that affect and infect Africans,
Yeah.
so issues of importance to the African people and the African continent. To the viewer, thank you very much for keeping on UBC TV, especially the Pan-African Friday, yes, where we basically try to add value on what we have as a continent here.
Yeah, you started this program about how many years now? Coming to...
It's coming to 5 years, 5 to 6 years now.
And it is a pleasure, again, having you back on set, and for quite some time, I think we'll be having you here until your tour ends. But still, wherever you are, like people say, we shall be getting you. We definitely miss Ndugu Jagenda,
yes,
and apparently one time we were also going to round him up to ensure that he's also on this program. So today we are beginning a program looking at the issues that have been trending on this continent of Africa. And of course, I think the one of the issues is that, of course, there are a number of issues, but one of them is that later on we shall be looking at what is happening in the country of Haiti. Now we talk about Haiti because Haiti is basically an African country with the African people who were forced there against their own will, but they have lived there. So whatever happens to them, like we said at the beginning of this program, is also the concern of the African people. Now, before we go to that, let's look at what the issues that have been trending on this continent of Africa. One of them is the new president in Senegal. And it has been controversial because President Sall looked like he was beginning to be a Democrat. He cutting his presidential term to shorter than it was supposed to be, and also doing a lot of things and saying he was not, because that was his last term anyway. And the last term comes and said, by the way, the people are saying I shouldn't go. So the people were forcing him. But then the streets, the story was different because people are demonstrating, they want you to go and go sooner. But the man is saying, no, I shall see when that term ends. So that has been the fate of Africa, definitely. We have seen people come in as Democrats, as patriots, and we all these good titles. But by the end of the term, things are changing to the contrary. And then you wonder who definitely has bewitched us, the people of Africa. Because when you look at Macky Sall, was definitely the pure leader, you'll say, now we have arrived. But also, the other issue was this guy was, I hope it was not a plan, because he was all the time beating up Sonko, arresting Sonko every Friday so that he spend a weekend in police cells and releasing him on Tuesday. But like it also happened in Zimbabwe, you know, you keep on beating someone, but also promoting them.
In Zambia.
Yeah, in Zambia. So that one has also been a controversial issue, but eventually this man walks out of prison because Sonko has a legal stopper that he will not be able to run in the presidency, so he had to front Faye, and Faye 10 days of campaigning and wins the election and wins it first round. No question about it. That tells you how tired people can be, because I'm sure this voting was not because they loved this man so much, but I think they wanted some peace at the end of it. So we can look at this and see, what does that leave Africa? Do we have lessons to learn from there? And remember, most of this we are talking about are the French colonies. And the whole of West Africa has been in turmoil and still in turmoil because of that French influence. Knowing that even in Haiti, where we're going to be talking about, is again the same French administration. So what is happening between the French administration and the problems of Africa as of now? Because we're looking at this, because I think French is one country, our administration, colonial power, that has not completely left. No one has left, but for them, I think the ghosts are more active than any of those. So, Ndugu Wanzala.
Yeah, thank you very much. The way you introduced it, I was almost laughing in the studio, because I've monitored the events in Senegal, and for me, given the turmoil in the region, I used to look at Senegal as the beacon of hope, of democracy, of peace and stability. And I remember the way President Macky Sall came to power. He was actually a prime minister of the former president, Abdoulaye Wade,
Exactly.
who ruled for a long time. And time came when he almost wanted to anoint his son. And Macky Sall broke through the ranks and started the protests against his president,
Yeah, sure.
as a sitting prime minister, until Abdoulaye Wade said, no, I think it's time to transition and have a peaceful transfer of power, and that happened. So to me, they say power corrupts, okay? But Macky Sall was the last person I would have expected to reach his time of retirement, and then he begins playing games. When the games started, of course, you cannot determine who will come, whether maybe Sonko would have been a good leader, but he made Sonko by arresting him, jailing him. And what does it mean that a jailed person endorses a dangerous substitute,
Another jailed one.
another jailed one, who is released 10 days to elections, and he beats you with 54.3%, wins in first round? I think it was, it shows that people can get tired, and when they get tired, they can actually show it through the ballot. But then I would like to commend him for one thing. Having the courage. You know, many times why leaders get stuck and keep sinking in the mud is that they don't have the courage to overcome the prevailing situation. And maybe in this case, Macky Sall would have said, since I have over-arrested these people, I'm scared. If I leave, where am I going? But he had the courage. He left the Electoral Commission to do its work and to declare this 44-year-old man, whom many people are saying does not look presidential, but the Senegalese are saying this is the one that the one we want.
Yes.
Only moving forward, I saw a presidential decree by the incoming president immediately appointing Sonko, who was actually supposed to have been a president, to be prime minister. Now, how it will play out, I don't know, because
That's another dangerous game.
because moving forward, we may see a split
Yes.
between the two,
Yeah.
who are going actually to, I think they are going to share power.
Exactly.
And this one is a president, yet this one knows that
He's the president.
I'm actually the president. So that's another dangerous something that may happen in the nearby future. But for me, I credit Macky Sall, regardless of what happened, that he allowed to hand over. When I saw him giving that key to Faye and
in
leaving,
self-defense.
yes, and leaving the presidential palace, I said, oh, this is at least a hope for Africa in a region where we are seeing coups and things like that. But also what is most important is that it looks like Africa is very young, and the young people are fighting for their space. I'm seeing the coup leaders in Guinea, in Burkina Faso, so they're young people in their 40s. So it means, I think there are young people who are saying that, no, we are the majority, we can make a statement.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, on that also, I see these two people, much as they have been friends, Sonko and Faye have been friends for quite some time. They joined the same political party. They seem to have the same ideology in terms of programs for the country, because I saw Faye talking about introducing now a new currency, breaking away from the French currency, because that whole region has one currency, has a monetary program which is under franc something. There are two franc systems within that, the western part, but all of them subscribing to the French currency. You know they have their central bank, even there to monitor. But his ambitions, I look at them. The programs are good for the country if they are to be implemented, but some of them are going to be controversial, because when we look at Haiti later on, you'll find that the problems have been that when these colonialists and their cousins, like Elugarama says, look at a country which is going to be progressive, they will try as much as possible to cause confusion in that country, and we have seen this happen in Haiti. But the combination of Faye and Sonko could also be problematic. Both of these people are ambitious, and both of these people, they're more or less the same age, like we have seen it happens elsewhere. The good thing is that if they work together, then Senegal is sure that the next president is going to be Sonko after Faye. Now, if they fail to work together, there's going to be a fallout between the two. And we hope that does not happen. They continue keeping their friends. Faye seems to be softer. Sonko is aggressive. And as a prime minister who is going to be lower in rank than the president, and the president will take decisions that can also affect the prime minister, we shall hope and watch to see that happens. And do go a call.
Well, thank you, comrade. First of all, I want to look at the issue of France micromanaging the former colonies. I think the truth is that all colonial masters have not left. But the difference is in approach. Because even during that time of colonizing us, the Africans, the British employed indirect rule. And that's what they're still doing, indirect rule. But the French employed direct rule. Exactly. That they want to be seen physically imposing leaders, doing this. Of course, Britain is also doing it, but they are doing it indirectly, and you'll never know how they are doing it. So that is the difference. That is why the hand of France in her former colonies can easily be felt. But the hand of Britain cannot be felt because they are employing the indirect rule that they used to employ. Now, the other issue that we also have to look at when we look at the issue of Senegal, I really don't think that Faye was that popular.
No, of course.
Actually, this is a vote of no confidence to Mark and his group. He is a vote of no confidence because ideally, when he had started undoing what he had promised, and you see, when you start really implementing the very things that you fought when you come into power, that is when the population comes and say, look here, we have to put this to an end. But also I want us to understand how the West Africans really vote. That in most cases, when you harass an opponent, you create sympathy for that person among the voters and among the population. This thing started with Nkrumah. You remember Nkrumah won elections when he was in prison.
Exactly.
So, and so that has been almost a culture that once you harass somebody, you're actually popularizing that very candidate. That is in West Africa. You remember the issue of Alassane Ouattara and Gbagbo. When Ouattara was denied opportunity to contest on assumption or on allegation that he was not Ivorian, he was a Burkinabe. He was you can imagine somebody had been a minister, prime minister of Ivory Coast, but when it came to contesting, he said, no, you're not from Ivory Coast, you're from Burkina Faso. And you remember Ouattara even bringing the old mother from the village.
Exactly.
Please come and tell these people that I'm from Ivory Coast, I'm not from Burkina Faso. You get it? So all these. And even when they went ahead to deny him to contest, he endorsed Gbagbo, and Gbagbo won elections. But it's after Gbagbo winning election, they fell out.
Exactly.
Because then again, Gbagbo also tried to block Ouattara from contesting and also tried to amend the constitution. So these things have always happened. But the issue of Senegal, I wouldn't want to be a prophet of doom. I believe the two comrades really have to work together. Why they have to work together is that it is in their good. And now the people can look at what we call a clear succession plan.
Sure.
That after Faye, there is also somebody coming. Just like we've always seen in Tanzania, you remember when Kikwete was prevailed over. Say, look, you're still young, give chance to Mkapa. And 10 years down the road, he just came in naturally. So there are certain things that really, and so we also have to applaud Mark and his group for conceding defeat.
Yeah.
You know, it is not easy, a sitting president. You have actually humiliated, dehumanized your opponents. They win you on first round.
Yes.
And you really concede and hand over power. It is not something that is easy. You remember what happened in Zambia. You saw how Lungu was trying to play games at the last hour after losing that election. He thought really he was actually going to
even
win.
this one, the candidate of the Macky Sall political party, 24 hours after the close of the election, of the polling stations, he was saying, you know, we still have a big margin, and we are likely to go into the next election in the run. And but people are saying, nah, I think it is done. So sometimes, like you are saying, when you push a person so much, you promote them, and people begin having the sympathy. Say, but why? And that's why also sometimes politicians would wish to create that tension, so that you are harassed, you are beaten. I mean, if you are not beaten, then how are people going to know you? But thank God, like you are saying. But I also have a feeling that if Sonko and Faye are to succeed in the administration, they will have to rely a lot on the outgoing administration also of Macky Sall, because they seem not to have been in the administration at all. Faye has been a farmer who eventually became and has an IT background like that, and then he became an activist. So he has not been in the main government administration. Macky Sall, Sonko equally has been an activist and of course a playboy at that. And he using his lifestyle, they were now using his own lifestyle to undermine him. So I think they'll have to rely a lot on the outgoing administration for solid leadership to have a government which is stable.
Maybe if I could come in here, you see, history has taught us that when people are elected out of excitement, if they really don't sober up, they can easily plunge the country into chaos.
Exactly.
You see what is happening in Ukraine.
Yeah.
You see what happened in Madagascar, where where the citizens can vote for a DJ because he plays good
Yes.
music, and they think that maybe managing a disco club is the same as managing a country.
Exactly.
So activism and managing a country, these are two different things. They will really have to work with the old administration. They will really need to retain some of the ministers, some of the officials in the outgoing government. They will really need to retain them. But now, if they go on a mission to purge out the old members or the old, I mean, people who served in the government, then they are bound to fail.
Sure.
Yes, because ideally, these 5 years would actually can even be a learning process for them.
Exactly.
Yes, that they will very much need to retain most of the technocrats, very much need to retain most of the senior politicians, and they will need to consult widely. Because when you look at when you listen to Faye, he's this firebrand who is actually even antagonizing international powers already, and which is not healthy for him. Yes, because he needs to understand that at international level there are serious players that can actually fail you if you really don't work with them, if you don't strategically engage them for the good of your own country. At times, leaders compromise when it comes to international politics, not because they really love what those people are bringing to them, but for purposes of sustaining growth and movement in their own countries.
Sure.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, because sometimes you don't do that. The issue is you can only run a country based on now if you are going to build a strong economy. Because that's one of the issues that has been running on for their campaign. But how do you get that country now back to a stronger economy? Of course, I know Sall has tried as a president, and the country was not doing, compared to the rest the countries in the area, was not doing as bad. There is a way that they could even improve from where they are. But now it means that the new administration has to build on that and do better. Should they drop in the economy of that country, then a lot will happen.
Yeah, actually I have seen so many international media describing Faye as a radical leftist.
Yeah, that's what they are calling
And if you look at the administration of Macky Sall, when he came in, most of the reforms were free economy, and then he triggered economic growth. Actually, he had very impressive economic growth, and then modernization of cities and urban areas. So now being, I know that most of the leftist ideas are very popular because you will promise free education, you will promise I'm going to do this rail, I will support school feeding programs. It sounds beautiful. Everyone would like to listen to that. And popular. But now when you come to power and then you see that the basket is dry, you begin asking yourself questions. How am I going to raise the money to do this? We have seen all these examples. You saw one of the reasons Venezuela started sliding into economic chaos other than the sanctions, even in the earlier days of Hugo Chavez, is that he said, okay, we have the oil, I will build houses, numbers, hundreds of thousands. So when he went for social programs, at the end of the day, he resorted to borrowing in advance to fund his programs. So I think I would like to agree that in the current global order, you can even see the way our head of state is managing it here. He can be very angry with the Western world, but at the same time, when a British monarch comes around, he will welcome him and say, you know what, let's talk about business and so forth. And that kind of approach is now forcing certain countries like now Britain, now they are beginning what they call a soft power approach. That we can collaborate on culture, on business, we can bring our business people to explore opportunities in Uganda. And that if you balance, you are able to protect the country, and the country is able to go on a right trajectory. So radical leftist or radical right in the current place does not work for a country.
Yeah, radicalism of whichever
Side.
who cannot, because we have seen this even in Europe. Most of the radical left and the radical right, or the center right or center left, sometimes have issues. The good thing is that for them, they have the systems have developed over time, and the people can know, because when you join the green, you know what they believe. When you join the Democrats, you know what they believe. And it's not as common as here when you see people decamping and camping during campaigns. When I have seen this experience in Kenya, when you are going to have elections, a number of camps now move looking for alliances to form political parties. And after political parties, after the elections, then you find the people now trying to float around to see who to ally with in the new government. So, but the systems, especially in the Europe, and one thing I like about them is that they have perfected their systems. A person is born as a Democrat, or is also a socialist, or is in that political pattern. There's a reason as to why they do so. So it is passed on from generation to generation. I don't remember which now political. For example, in Kenya, after Kanu left, then other political parties that have come up, and now they have left political parties that have joined buses. You just have one, and everyone is joining. So that one makes it a bit hard. But the radical positions in the political world sometimes don't hold for a long time, because people are social. So they need to have programs that they will more or less bring them together, and the thinking that will accommodate everyone. And that's what this young group has come up with. They are looking at the issues that affect the people of Senegal, the issues of health, issues of education, issues of economy. This man is saying, no, this time we are going to have our own currency. We are not going to subscribe to the franc currency. Now, that franc currency has problems, and the same problems that have been in the 14 countries of the wider French colonies in West Africa, because these people have been paying colonial tax to date. And you wonder, in this time and age, and why they've been doing so. France as a country now must be in a crisis. They must be having the second plan on what to do. Because if Africa is moving away from France, Africa has been footing the budget of France. Africa has been sustaining the energy sector of France. Africa has been doing literally everything in France. Now, the new leadership in Africa, in West Africa, especially in the 14 strongholds of France, are saying no, 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 no. And the election of Sonko and his president could also have been a savior to Senegal, because if Comesa didn't come in, there was going to be another coup in Senegal, because Macky Sall was failing now to handle the issues of the country. So this election also saves face for Comesa, but also for Senegal, so that we don't have to go into another coup. But look at it. Do you think France is going to give out on this?
Well, you know, whether France gives out on this or not, because this reminds me what Putin said some time back, that actually, because he said that he does not need to go to war with France. The best thing is to incite the French colonies in Africa, former French colonies in Africa, and the economy will just go crumbling.
Even the Italian Prime Minister also said, why are you stuck there?
Yeah. But also, let's look at this. Let's look at a country like Germany. We find that Germany is a country that, well, we can say, after the Second World War, ideally First and Second World War, ideally all her colonies were taken away from her. And it is a country that has had no colonies. but I think it is the most powerful economy
It's the strongest now
in Europe.
in Europe
You
now,
get it?
as we speak.
They don't rely on any colony. So they are actually on their own, and they are strong as an economy. I think it's time really also France plan to build her own economy that can sustain their development programs without necessarily exploiting Africa. Because now this is a wave that is actually going on in West Africa. And the reasons being is that they feel that actually they are getting peanuts out of their resources, and the resources are being used to develop France. So these are some of the things that will come out. But back to Faye and his friend Sonko, the issue is that, you see, it takes me back to the old cattle keepers saying that what cattle keepers discuss when they are grazing is not what they discuss when they're milking. Yes.
Sure.
So when you see so it's the same thing. What politicians discuss when they are campaigning is really not what they actually discuss when they've got power. Because now he has a lot on the table. The first thing is how to resettle, reward the various players that enabled him to succeed. So that is the first headache. How do you resettle all these, the various players? Because now this victory did not just come by like that.
Yes.
There are serious players that have been there pushing for this. So that is number one. Then secondly, how is he going to organize the transition, and for how long is it going to be? Because we've seen countries they spend the whole term transiting when they have failed actually to transit.
Exactly.
So how is he going to organize the transition is also another thing that is going to look at. Then the other issue that is actually going to be a serious headache is now the manifesto, rolling it out so that the people can really say, yes, this is what we voted for.
Sure.
And now these are serious things that require him to get a serious team that can help him navigate around these issues so that he can be able to say, look here, maybe 5 years down the road, at the next election, his team can convincingly win. I was talking to some people, and I was like saying, look here, when somebody gets into office, the Africans, you must plan how you're going to win the next election.
Sure.
And I was giving an example of Kenya, that now Dr. William Ruto has already won the next election by settling Raila and coming out to campaign for him to go at the African Union. That now he's paving way for he's clearing the main opposition. You get it? So implying that at the next election, that even in areas we saw as traditionally, historically, Raila's stronghold,
yes.
This time Ruto will easily win
Exactly.
in those areas. So these are some of the things that now the Sonko and Faye should now look ahead and say, look here, how do we plan ourselves? How do we strategically position ourselves, work for the people, but also look at the opposition now. Yes, those people who are in government, who are being displaced, who are being displaced, who are the influential people that we have to bring also on board. But we should also not forget the issue of the military question, because in West Africa we've seen a number of coups. Now these are people who are totally outsiders to the military, to the system. Yeah. So how they court them and work with them is also another issue. But when they come with their tendency of firing everybody, they will end up firing themselves out of office.
Out of office. Yes, because if you remember, yes. This man, first of all, you have to look at the ethnicity, that the intricacies of the ethnicity, especially now in the military, who is heading. Because as a new president, he may have to do certain changes within the military, and that will be informed by the support as from the different regions of the country. Who supported who? Where do we have strong support? Where does SAL come from? and so all this. But also that's also going to go down. It has to a delicate balance between him and Sonko. Now, should Sonko feel this president is taking their support down, he will definitely come in. And should the president feel that Sonko is undermining his presidency, something will also happen. And we wish that does not happen, because then the two, that will be a point of departure. And should that happen, then either of them will have to court now the outgoing administration to see where they can get the majority to gang against either of them. And I hope that doesn't happen. But also the other issue is the issue of religion is also going to be very important in the next administration. I think Sonko is a Christian. This one is a Muslim. And for the first time, I'm looking at the two first ladies in the State House. I like that, that you have now two first ladies. And they seem to be working together very well so far. So these are some of the issues that need to be looked at in the new administration. But I hope all said and done so far, since they have been working together, we pray that they will continue working together. But like I said, cattle keepers, what they discuss when they are grazing is not what they discuss when they are milking. But what do you believe, which type of economic system, structures need to be put in place for this country now?
These two people seem to, regardless of what was happening on the street, they seem to have inherited a system that is of mixed economy. And of course, they have a functioning central bank. Actually, in terms of stability, economic and financial stability, they have inherited a country which did not have a lot of problems compared to other neighbors. Yeah. And I have seen them, on the other hand, being embraced by the generals, the military, the junta leaders, yes, from Guinea, from Burkina Faso, congratulating, and Faye and Sonko are saying they are going to campaign for them to come back to ECOWAS, where they had been kicked out because of not showing a plan of transiting from military rule. For me, I believe that it all will depend on the manner in which they handle the politics. If they go radical, like say the Burkina Faso president, and think that probably Putin will solve every problem, they will achieve zero. And if they also wholeheartedly betray the people, because it looks like the anti-French sentiments played out a lot in this election. Actually, if they go against the will of the people will turn against them. Sure. So they must exercise some reforms. They are talking of reviewing agreements with the French, with with foreign powers on natural resources. I think this is a good move, but it doesn't have to be a radical approach, because a radical approach can be destructive. Because like Nduguru Garama usually says that these French and their cousins, they are many. You will think you are squeezing the French, but they will network and catch you from so many different places. And actually they will frustrate you. So me, I believe that they have to keep an approach that balances. Exactly. That balances the West, the left. They have to review these agreements progressively, not in a radical manner, and in a sensible manner. Because you may have natural resources in the ground, but you even don't have the technology. And at the end of the day, you may resort to smuggling. Key players emerge in the government who will steal the minerals and sell. And at the end of the day, you don't see this in the treasury. So for me, it's like I anticipate a system where they are going to see the reality. They will do some reforms to please their followers, but there are those that are going to remain, and the system will continue. It will not change much.
And what do you think the role of ECOWAS in this?
Well, I saw the president, the current chairman of ECOWAS, President Tinubu of Nigeria, going there. Apart from what I saw him expressing happiness and saying you have stood above by showing your democracy. Actually, they raised above because you know how Tinubu himself came to power. You can't convince me that you have 90.
He's not even sure if he was elected or not.
You can't tell me you have 90 million voters and you are elected by 6 million people. So, you know, but these things happen in Africa.
Sure.
So I know that ECOWAS is not the ECOWAS I knew in the mid-90s, late 90s, the one that was straight away going into Liberia, Sierra Leone to bring order. I think ECOWAS's credibility also has somehow gone down. And it is largely looked at in the region as a body that promotes imperialistic tendencies. Yeah. And that is why when they wanted to intervene in Niger, everyone says, you enter, then we meet there. Other countries will say, we shall come for you. So they had to back out and resort to negotiations. So I believe Senegal is going to be a key player in ECOWAS. And for me, the issue of readmitting these countries, I think it's common sense. Because without these, there are about 5, then the regional bloc weakens.
Yeah, but because I will look at that, I think as we'll come back, because when you close them doors, then what are the avenues of negotiations?
Absolutely.
Because you need to have the doors open. You can have a way of reprimanding them, but not definitely closing them down, because they will definitely come back, or you'll need them to come back. You're not going to leave them out. And once you close, then what happens when you have closed?
Absolutely.
These are some of the issues. When we come back shortly after the break, we'll be looking at what is happening in Haiti, because what is happening here is definitely as the same as what is happening in Haiti, and we'll be looking at Haiti and the implications and the complications of what is happening in that country, and then how does the African people also get affected. Don't go away briefly, and we're back after the break.
No more rashes and irritations. Movit Herbal Jelly and Herbal Soap is rich in natural herbs for a smooth and glowing skin.
Movit all day confidence.
Acholi Zono Industrial is one of the presidential initiatives which is brought here in Acholi land to skill our youth. The skilling is free of charge. What you really need, you have to be within the age of 18 to 35. They don't need any requirements apart from being willing. You have to be willing, and a youth who is willing to get the skills. The courses we have started with only 4. That is tailoring, hairdressing, carpentry, and welding. First intake, we registered 212, we admitted, 212 students from 10 administrative units of Acholi. These students, they recruited them from different districts within the Acholi sub-region. If we continue with this cooperation, many beneficiaries will pass through us, and they will go with enough skills, unknown skills, which will change them and later bring them into man economy. We shall really fight poverty in that way.
One-on-one with Michael Jordan Lukomwa.
A weekly face-to-face conversation focusing on accountability, inspiration, information, and sensitization of the public from the various sources, such as inspirational profiles.
Having a disability is not inability.
Professional guidance.
There is no special antiretroviral therapy that is given specifically for discordant couples.
And of course, politics.
Don't you see anywhere that you would give a credit in the fight against COVID?
My role as the owner of the country is not to, be preoccupied by giving credit to my servant.
We have said that if we are to talk to General Museveni, there must be certain conditions in place.
Is it true that you paid 5 million shillings to MPs that voted for Anita Monga and Tayebo?
That is laughable. Why would we pay when we have nominated them as SEC?
The Conservative Party has been represented in Uganda's parliament for 10 years. We only
by one MP, you yourself.
And my daughter, Susan.
Every Friday 9 p.m. it's One-on-One with Michael Jordan Lukomwa on UBC TV, inspiring Uganda.
Nyati Motion Pictures brings you Tuko Pamoja, a documentary film about our unity as Ugandans and Africans.
Bunyoro would have simply created an East African community that we are looking for today.
The rulers of Bunyoro are actually Luos.
We people who live across the Nile, we are so related from our myth or from just the Nile.
We are the same people, and genetically we are even the same people.
We are similar people.
We are one.
Pamoja, we are one.
Use that word, pamoja.
Premiering every week from 3rd February to June 2024 at the National Theatre and Indere Center. Daily screenings are from 4th February to June 2024 at Hams Cinemax and the National Theatre. To get a ticket, call 0778 787 660. Tuko Pamoja?
UBC is the national public broadcaster. We educate, inform, entertain, and inspire our audiences. You can watch us on free-to-air channel 001, DSTV channel 282, GoTV channel 371, Star Times channel 201, Zuku TV channel 20, and Azam TV channel 350. Even when your subscription expires, you can still watch UBC for free on your pay TV platforms.
Welcome back to this second edition segment of the Pan-African Friday of today, and we have been looking at the issues happening in the West African part of this continent, and including the election of the new president in Senegal, who at least has taken over office and in a smooth transition, and that is a credit for the African people, because those who are opposed to the African cultures are saying Africans are not able to manage themselves, they are not able to look after their issues. Now, when we see some of the things happening, I think it gives us hope that at some point, I think Africa will be able to take its own issues in our own hands and be able to manage them. Now, we went off air, we were looking at how this was done and why it was done, basically, and looking at the personalities and the key players who were involved in the election in this particular country. Now, we are moving on to Haiti. And Haiti is not a country in Africa, but apparently it is an African country having the African population. The people who were taken to Haiti from all the other parts of the world, of course, for those who follow history will understand how Africans have been able to move the rest of the world. They were taken against their will. They were traded by those who traded in us. But like President Museveni says, it is not only those who came and took the people from Africa. It was also with the collaboration of some of the leadership of Africa that we had at that time. I'm sure if it happened even today, we would have people doing the same to people. It's a matter of getting annoyed with you and your family, and I sell you off to the Arabs or to the Europeans and or Americans, and I'm away with you. So that is the country we're looking at, the country Haiti, which apparently is a small country. It's an island, and the only two, I think, countries on that island, that is Dominican Republic and Haiti. And so that's the country that we are looking at today. But I'll go straight to Ndugu Akol to look at how this country came to be.
Well, thank you very much, Ndugu Mtuta. Now, let's look at, when you look at Haiti, as you said, 95%
exactly
of the population are black people. And that gives us the impression that they are descendants Africans.
Yes.
So these are perhaps the descendants. I mean, that gives these are descendants of slaves that were got from Africa and taken to those particular areas. But again, we must also understand that it is a country that was under the rule of France. It's a colony of France, former colony of France.
I told you.
Having got their independence in 1804 and then getting recognition around 1825. But the issues in Haiti is having a leadership that has failed to understand the global trends. That once a leadership in any country cannot understand the global trends, cannot successfully engage players in the international, in the global politics, then that is what happens. Because when it comes to global politics, there are players who can actually disorganize you if you really are not so careful. So that is what we are actually seeing in Haiti, that now a country that has been besieged by gangs, and the question is who actually created those gangs? That should be question number one. Who is arming the gangs? That is also another question that we have to look at. And also let's look at the population. Why is it that the population seems to be actually okay with the gangs than their own administration? So these are things that we actually need to interrogate. But still, once there is a breakdown in constitutionalism in any given country, of course, that is anarchy, comes as the next thing. For example, we look at in 2021, President Jovenel Moïse of Haiti is assassinated. The Prime Minister comes in as an acting, both Prime Minister and an acting President. Midway, he's also, circumstances force him to resign. So up to now, the country has not thought of organizing an election so that now they can have a legitimate president, a legitimate regime, but also have now an acting prime minister who's also being threatened. So where does that leave the people? So the issues in Haiti as of now is that they need to organize an election, come up with a government that is illegitimate, that can actually handle their crises. Or if the worst comes to the worst, then the army can actually take over and organize the country rather than leaving it at the mercy of the gangs. Yes.
Maybe the army has also got with the...
Yeah, you see, Leadership is very key, because now if elections are not organized so that they can have a legitimate regime, or if the army cannot take over, then we are going to see what like we had in Somalia, warlords. So because these gangs are actually going now, they are going to mutate into warlords, and then you'll find that maybe in a particular city, this hill is owned by this gang, the other town is owned by that gang. So this is a situation that can only be saved by an election or by the army taking over.
Yeah, because that's happening. And
among the facts that I know from Haiti, and what was almost coming to happen here, is that there are characters, players in the politics at some moment, including the president, former president,
Yes.
Jean Bertrand Aristide,
Yeah.
who were depending on using gangs to manage the politics. So using the gangs to manage politics meant that you had to give them money, you give them some weapons to counter certain groups that you don't like. And so that is how this Barbecue, who was a former senior police officer, emerged as one of the gang leaders who pretended like he can go and neutralize, just the way we're having characters here like Sobi and others under the General Kaihura's reign, that police cannot manage certain areas, so you depend on gangs, and these gangs become more powerful than the state security apparatus. So now, when this assassinated president came to power, with the help of the Americans, he tried to make efforts to disarm these groups. And other forces, he didn't know that they had actually now grown networks, including selling drugs and acquiring more advanced weapons. That's how they were able to raid the presidential palace and kill the president. So to me, one of the lessons I draw from that is that it is better to build state institutions that you can able control, other than depending on gangs that are outside the government. Because in the history of politics, in the history of security, there is no country that has successfully depended on gangs to manage security, to manage politics. Most times when they say they have reformed, they're actually looking for protection from the state. And you know that they're using the protection from the state to empower themselves and do other horrible things, to reorganize. And at the end of the day, like now, to show that these gangs in Haiti are so powerful, they are saying all these talks led by America and France on Haiti, restoring stability on Haiti, they're saying they will not succeed unless they participate. But you know the international community is saying, we cannot recognize you to participate because you are criminals.
Sure.
But the criminals are saying, okay, those are your talks, but the one you appoint, you will not rule us here. So for me, I think it's going to take more than, like previously they did, more than maybe even the local army. By the time they control Port-au-Prince, the whole city, and are able to even kill a president, it means even the local military cannot manage them. Actually, when I saw Kenya insisting on being the first to take police there, I was just seeing coffins for the Kenyan police. And one of the politicians in Kenya was saying, no, we cannot take our to commit suicide when we are seeing. And when the Prime Minister came to Kenya to finalize an agreement with President Ruto, he did not return to power. So to me, what we learn as black states or African states, I think they are not African, okay, they are state of Africans in the diaspora. We need to build state institutions. We need to trust that we build the police, we build the army, we discipline them the way I see here when they misbehave, they are court-martialed. But gangs can create problems just as we saw, because Uganda was almost going there.
Yeah, because when you look at the issue of this country, I think Aristide was the first elected president. And you could see that Haiti has been peaceful for quite some time.
Yes.
And when this president selected, I think then in 91 is overthrown. There is a coup. And then the coup is organized by the French and the Americans. And the reason is that they thought this man was not moving to their line. And which is the line? They want to keep this country in poverty. They want to make this country as a raw material resource center. They want to make this country as an extension of their drug business, but also the arming and selling of the arms, because the American companies are the ones that are supplying the guns we are seeing in Haiti. And that one, I think Akolo was talking about trying to balance the interests in the global politics. It sometimes may also be very complicated in trying to make compromises against the will and the wishes of your people. Sometimes the stakes are so high that leaders can definitely sometimes fail to do that. But when you look at it, that the people of Haiti were peaceful until now. The French, the Americans, the Canadians, and other, but that also comes to his point that if you are a government and you have not built structures and institutions, then this is bound to happen, because the external influence will have it very easy to influence activities in your country that will not be able sometimes to understand where the problem is coming from, because you don't have the mechanism to be able to detect that. But do you think that the problem is purely leadership, or there is some other problem?
Yeah, I think society rises and falls on leadership. Like Nkrumah used to say, seek first the political kingdom and the rest will really follow. Haiti was peaceful just because the leadership then understood the global trends. They really knew their position. But once you get radical people coming onto power and they think they can make spontaneous changes, this is, of course, that is what happens.
Exactly. Yeah.
Then secondly, once you have leaders that whose legitimacy and popularity is actually reducing, they will always want to create gangs as a way of intimidating the population, the voters, as a way of sustaining power. Now, it goes back to what Comrade was saying, that in most cases, countries that have leaders that have spent much of their time developing institutions, that even when they leave power, regardless of the circumstances, whether it is an assassination, whether it is through an election, whether it is through death, it becomes easier for the country to move on. But when you find that a leadership that is hell-bent on killing institutions, empowering illegal groups, unlawful groups, that in the event that such leadership loses power, the next thing you're going to see is chaos, like what we are seeing actually in Haiti. Because now the gangs are more powerful than actually state institutions, than government institutions. Just like we saw the mistakes made by Siad Barre in Somalia, that after him, Somalia was never the same. Yes, Somalia was never the same, and it took a very, very, very long time. That up to now they are yet to recover from that. So I think this should be an eye opener to all Africans. That yes, at times we need strong leadership in every country, but when the strong leadership does not come up with, does not empower institutions, then chances are that after that country risks going into some kind of chaos. Now, for the international community, yes, there are two ways that they can engage the gangs, the gangsters, they can engage them so that they can see how they can eventually come up with a stable Haiti. Or they can decide to fight them, and when they can decide to fight them, since they are calling them criminals. And the problem is here that Haiti will actually be subject to destruction. They are going to take it back something like 20, 30 years back. And we should also understand that during the good old days, Haiti was actually the food basket of, of the Caribbean.
Yeah.
Yes, and actually it was a very, very stable economy, very stable country, and most of these countries around it would actually get food, even get services from Haiti.
And that was the problem. Because in 1991, when there is a coup, Aristide president comes back in power and lives in 1996. And I think in 2019, I think 2001, he comes back on power. And then when he comes back on power, it is again as the support of the Americans and the French and the Canadians. And when he comes back to power, he is expected to, because they are looking at him as a person who is going to do their planning. And the country has relative calm by that time. Much as there has been that coup, the country still has some semblance of recovery from the turbulence. And then the president introduces, and I think as a person, he feels that the people of Haiti are not getting the fair share of what they are doing. He introduces, he increases the living wage for people who are doing the sewing of the clothes for Americans, the type of Goa then in that country. He also pushes for government investment, more investment in agriculture, and you know this was the credo, the food basket you have put it. And by investing more in agriculture, it means you are going to control the food market throughout that region. He also increases the investment in health, in education, and infrastructure. What does that mean? That this is going to put this country at a level different from the rest. And maybe that is not going to, again, fill in the gap of what he was instructed and expected to do when he was being brought in power. But the other mistake that he made, he was talking of the unfair relationship in the global relationships. But that also included the push for the compensation by the French for the exploitation that they had done to this country, and which was also what they are doing in West Africa, this colonial tax. So he wanted them to pay $21 billion for what the French had done in Haiti. And trust me, that was the trigger of the problem. That in 2004, Americans sent in the SEALs. They picked a jet from Guantanamo Bay, put the man on the jet, his wife, his family, and he was flown, not knowing where he was going, into the Central African Republic. And why, of all countries, the Central African Republic, you see? So when you look at this, and the man is kept in Central Africa until one time when he says that he was kidnapped, because that information was kept as a secret, until the day he said that he was kidnapped from his home and he was dumped in Central Africa.
Republic, yeah.
Then the Central African people saying, for us, they brought you here as a guest. We don't know whether you are kidnapped. Because of that pressure, they could not do that. So when you look at this, and then Americans and the French had to install a new leadership in Haiti. Now, even when they installed the new leadership in Haiti, because he was talking about barbecue, and there is the other guy who was arrested for being being part of the assassination, but also for trafficking the trafficking, because the Americans, what they're doing in Haiti, other than, in fact, to the extent that's why people are saying, even that earthquake, why that earthquake at that time? In fact, the people who believe that that earthquake was man-made.
Was artificial.
It was artificial. So this country is also being used as a major highway for trafficking of drugs. But as you traffic drugs, you are also selling in the arms. And now, it has come to an extent when the people they used, the gangsters, have now gone out of hand. They can no longer control them. They are powerful enough. They have enough arms and powerful arms, and they cannot control them because they have money. And one of the criminals, other than Barbecue, he now controls a large part of the country and wants to come in as a president. Now, they are saying, like he put it, you are having these discussions, but for us, we are not involved. And if we are not involved, these talks are not going to work. And who are you? First of all, even if they were to be involved, these gangs have taken over different regions, because Haiti as a country has a number of other places other than the capital. And they have taken over territories outside the capital, and they are controlling a number they have taken over even police stations now. They are controlling those police stations. They are now the authority. But you are not recognized. Even if you wanted now to have these gangs to come on the table, they will not agree. Because each group has its own leadership and has its own ambitions. To them, they want money, they want power, and they want to control those areas. Because if people are saying, one was asking a question, if people are saying that Haiti is so poor, why are people struggling? And where are they getting money to have all of these arms that they are using? So other than the local problems, I think America and France are the biggest problem in Haiti.
No, I think apart from America and France, as you say, in most cases, it is the leadership. Yeah, because once you have a sober leadership that can read the political dynamics of the time, they can actually save such a situation. But also we must understand that in terms of population, Haiti has about 11 to 13 million people. So it's not a very big population.
Yeah, sure.
That if countries like actually the US decided to save the face of Haiti, they can actually do it.
So.
They can generally do it that way. But of course, you've always known how America and our allies do their work. They always prefer indirect rule. In other words, they will empower a particular group they feel can actually can help them achieve their mission to take over leadership. So in what is best for Haiti, of course, is they need peace, and we can only have peace if they can engage all the players, whether they are criminals or not. Because ideally where there is conflict, you remember there is always rebels who are regarded as criminals, and then there is a ruling side. So the moment you say, okay, look here, we are getting into talks. So you actually put aside that vocabulary of these are criminals. Now you look at them as players. They are players in the peace process. And once you recognize them as players in the peace process, then that becomes easier to dialogue with them, and then perhaps seed ground so that everybody can come on board and build together. But again, I think there is a bigger problem with the Caribbean and, of course, the South American countries. Yeah, because you find that most of them are having the very challenges we have, like Africa.
Yeah.
And I've always asked myself, is it the African blood prone to conflict? Are we mismanagers that actually everywhere
we
are, you don't seem to, you get it. That even when you go to the US, you find that the states where they have a big presence of, of Africans, you'll always find violence
and disasters too. Africa.
So those are the issues.
So then what is this deal? What was Ruto thinking?
No, of course, like every other leader, when you come to power, you also want to show that you are a new kid on the block. You can also do what your neighbors are doing. You can also send, because it's not the first time he's doing it. Remember, he sent forces to Congo.
Yeah.
Yes, he sent part of the military to DRC Congo. So I think he says, look here, we are doing it and we can. But also on the other hand, don't forget that there are always incentives for that, especially when the international community realizes that yes, you have a force that can help them do their work. Yes, just like we've seen missions in Somalia, we've seen missions in Central Africa, and we've seen ECOWAS in places like Gambia and other countries. So these are some of the things that that motivate some leaders to say, look here, I think we have a force, enough force. But also we should also realize that at times you find that leaders are deploying their undeployed. Yes, the undeployed forces, that perhaps when they get there, you could get more experience, and also the country's rankings in terms of...
That also raises the profile of the leader and the country.
Yeah, maybe I begin with the motivation for Kenya to take part in that. You know that it is the UN and largely funded by the US that is to finance the Haiti mission. It is the US leading, putting money together. And as you know, that if you go for such a mission, first of all, the UN does not own weapons. The weapons are rented, are hired from the participating countries. So you know that those are financial incentives. They will rent your weapons, your guns, and they pay you for that. Then secondly, there are emoluments that go to the peacekeeping force, the individuals. You know that we are building here Mbuya Military Hospital. Part of the proceeds come from the percentage that the UPDF gets from each soldier who is serving in Somalia. So we are going to have that hospital because of that. And then the other is the profile one of the country's security. Like you see, every time we are campaigning, we say, oh, the UPDF is now very stable. We are in Somalia, we are here, the profile. And it also raises the profile of the leader at that time. So like Ruto, who is a new kid on the block, they will say, you know, under my administration, Kenya has achieved so much, has stabilized Haiti, leaving the risks aside. And then the other, you rightly put it, because I remember the last overthrow of President Aristide in Haiti, there was a French-sponsored rebel group. And actually, when they were fighting and they reached the capital, the weapons they were using were so modern. These weapons that they use in Iraq and elsewhere that can show you a target from very far, not AK-47, that most of the rebels are using in Congo and so forth. So that implied that there was a force that was supplying these modern weapons. And therefore, I think the Americans also mismanaged the situation by saying, agreeing with the French that Aristide could be the problem. He keeps on going and coming back to power, not knowing what their role in the conflict until they removed him. Today, Haiti is harvesting that. Then one of the reasons that Haiti has sunk so low at the moment came from the earthquake you are talking about that killed 200,000 and devastated homes and families. The country did not recover. And you know that is why we must be concerned as African people, as Ugandans, that if you have an army of so many young people who are in destitution, jobless, they can't find a job, they can run to anything. That's how you end up with criminals. Lately, you see police cameras releasing images of criminals in Kampala kicking women and robbing bags broad day in a short distance between them and the police. The other day, the police were fighting a gang with pangas who had almost put a roadblock at Sao Paulo Kagua Road. So if you have very many young people in destitution and they become hopeless, it becomes a dangerous situation for the country. And for me, that is a lesson that all efforts should be geared towards ensuring that at least everyone feels a share of belonging to a country. Otherwise, if a person doesn't have anything in a country, doesn't see a reason why it should protect
because
that country.
That's also a two-way. There is one thing, government coming up with programs to help the people, and there's also a different thing, people appreciating and working towards that. Because
absolutely.
For example, the issue of Haiti can be understood, because after that earthquake, first of all, it is not true that the aftermath was mishandled by the administration, like America and the Western people seem to put it. What would they do? You have an earthquake, people have died, homes have been devastated. You don't have the plan, you don't have the amount, the resources to be able to put people back to where they were. You would still rely on the same people who are your friends and international community. But the Americans and the French are saying, no, it is the president who has mismanaged the efforts. Like it was, they had money which was reserved for the earthquake, it was not there. But also, at the same time, what they do is that elections, they are called for elections 6 months, I think, after the earthquake. And in that election, there were a number of candidates. Now, the funny thing, which up to now people are trying to understand what happened, was that there were two actually major runners who were supposed to go in the second runoff. One of them was the former First Lady. Another one was the man who was the party, the ruling party candidate. And now, when the elections were held, it is on record that any Secretary of State sent information to the Electoral Commission saying, no, the first and the second person, the first person must be removed for the next runoff and bring in the third person. So why? You see? And that is part of the problem now, because they said this man is going to take, because remember, they are choosing the president for mismanaging the aftermath. And the person who is likely to win the election is the one who is being sponsored by, who is being supported by the president. So they want to end this administration and put a new administration. And because of this unhandedness, 20 years later, there is no elected official in Haiti, and there is no government in Haiti. And the chaos, the death, the suffering of the people, and these gangs is because someone has put a hand there. And even like you put it, when the president is removed by the American team, the American security forces, they have removed President Aristide from power. They have flown him to Central African Republic, and is being guarded by the French soldiers. So you see that it is a deliberate plan to destabilize this country for the purpose, for their own interests. Now, the question that comes to my mind, and which I want to share with you people, is where is African Union in this?
No, of course, now one will say that the Caribbean is not part of Africa. Maybe, I don't know whether that is what they call the diaspora, but
they call it Africa.
I don't know whether that is what
actually there is a partnership, you know what they call Africa, Caribbean and Pacific. It is an alliance of black states.
Yeah. Yes, perhaps that
because the Caribbean, definitely, all of them.
That is the alliance that can work on that. But that is outside the African Union mandate. But yes, when it comes to the comradeship, of course, these are also fellow black people. I think that one, of course, leaders on the continent have every reason to engage the leaders, those to show concern, and they engage the players in the Caribbean, especially in Haiti, because you remember Actually, these are the people who inspired great Pan-Africans like Kwame Nkrumah to come and fight for independence. They are the very people.
Exactly.
So now, really, we should not break that tie. We've had a historical, we have a historical link. We've actually come a long way together. So the leadership on the continent, the leaders, especially the progressive leaders, it's so high time that they should show interest and perhaps see how they also become part of the international voices or forces that could actually prevail on the various players in Haiti to come together for the sake of that island, for the sake of that Caribbean actually country. But again, as I said, that still even you see in South America, most of the countries there are not doing well.
Exactly.
There is conflict, and they are all prone to drug dealers.
Yeah, because on the face of it, one would say, like one time one said that Africans are known for dancing, music, and drinking, and then sex, and then drugs. But you even this drug business, you realize that someone is pushing this drug program into the black population so that the black people are finishing themselves. Because the fear of the white supremacy is then, you can see it coming, that these people believe that the best way, and which you put it, that the Western world, the colonialists have been using very sophisticated ways, sometimes not as direct as France, but they use the people themselves to do their own dirty job. So they are using the black populations themselves to finish themselves, give them drugs, subject them to the diseases. The other RD said we were not civilized, but we were did what? Something. So that you may not know that it's a program. You may think that black people are fighting themselves in Haiti, they are fighting themselves wherever they have been. We have been talking about wherever you have a bigger population of black people, there are chaos.
There's chaos, actually.
It is not just, when you look at it, you think Africans are chaotic. But when you go deep, it's when you discover that actually there is a program that is meant to disorganize them, because the long-term plan is to have these people finish. That's why for me, I get concerned that the African Union should have something, should do something, should look at these things and see it beyond what we are seeing on top and go deeper. Now that your friend is coming to African Union, I hope something will change, because having had enough beating from home, I think he will understand that we are here and we are basically to survive. But look, Doctor, do you also look at what is happening in Haiti, for example, when you see Americans and the French doing all these dirty things, and no one seems to blame them? Do you? Because why I'm saying so, Africa and the United Nations, France and America are two members of the Security Council. These are the same people who recommended for the deployment of a multinational force in Haiti. These are the same people who overthrew an elected president and replaced him with a person of their choice.
Of their choice, yeah.
These are the same people who are going to the UN to ask for funding of the police, including this one, which was supposed to be coming from Kenya, so that they go to Haiti. Can't even, let alone African Union as Africa, can't African countries look at this, and when they come to New York for the General Assembly, raise some of these issues?
I have always seen, I watched the UN General Assembly, and I have seen leaders speak strongly about some of these issues, and they are given time. But I think as they are talking, these big brothers just say these ones are wasting time because a leader can commit, and maybe that's lately I don't see our president regularly going there. I see him delegating people to go to the UN General Assembly, because you find that the General Assembly becomes more of a ritual. Everyone reporting about SDGs, how they are reaching, you know, the goals, you know, the common agenda, but you know.
In fact, at the UN, there is a saying, and I normally hear our ambassador saying, let's go and attend someone's address, because then they will also come and attend ours. Because if you don't do that, you will be speaking a lot, especially for those that are speaking last.
I miss the radical speeches from Muammar Gaddafi, Mugabe,
Fidel Castro.
Because
Castro made one for 4 hours. No one was there.
Because every time they reach there, they would touch African issues, they touch global issues, and they say it straight to the face of the global powers. Because it is a pretense, and that is why the UN relevance has been waning, you know, declining in a number of ways. And that's why maybe sometimes I agree with Donald Trump. I don't agree with so many of his policies, but on saying UN has lost its relevance, and he went ahead to cut funding during his first administration, because he thinks people pretend, there's a lot of pretense about what goes on. People speak here and they're doing a lot of underhand methods, and lately that is why it is becoming attractive for other countries now to join emerging global institutions like the one we hosted here recently. So many people are saying maybe an alliance of us developing countries, we can discuss what
listen to one another.
What affects us, because we have the common programs, and that is what China is trying to exploit by saying, okay, me, I will not go in by force, but of course, for every superpower, when it reaches there, it uses a lot of strategies to stay on top. One is that the whole world needs to condemn this, because it doesn't help anything you condemning the black race, because you rightly said it. If you go, for example, in the United States or Canada, you go to black communities have the highest HIV rates, the highest poverty rates, the low education rates, the highest crime rates, and they live in the same country, controlled by same government, same police. What is the problem? Someone back, an American I went with school, was trying to brainwash me that, you know, it takes a long time for a person who has been oppressed to change. Yes, I know that happens. A person who has been, say, under torture for long may not think correctively. But also there is a role that probably someone has to play to ensure that the black race is not promoted as a race of failures. You know, when I was studying in China, if you visited a school and they want to see you touch a basketball, that's what they know, that, oh, the Africans can play. They know how to play, they know how to act in movies, but when it comes to intellectual debate, when they hear you speak something of sense, they say, he also knows. As if it is not a crime, as if it's a crime for an African to show brilliance. So for me, I think the global order is tilted, and there is injustice, and something must be done, and there is no race that has been helped by another race to come out of this. It has to be we, the Africans, asserting themselves. Many people condemned the President Museveni. You know, President Museveni and then Sassou Nguesso, Theodore Ngwema, the big men on the continent, came up with something called, and the Ramaphosa, something called Africa Security Foundation, which is being coordinated by the Honorable Amama Mbabazi, and that's what prepared the peace talks when the Ramaphosa led a group of African leaders to go to Ukraine, and I think that is being foresighted, that if we cannot work together, especially investing in strategic security of Africa and the black people, we shall never achieve anything.
Sure.
Yeah, actually, Comrade just said something that really has reminded me of one very unfortunate scenario or reality, that I think the white race, they have a mentality that there's nothing sensible that can come out from an African. that even when you look at most blacks that actually living in the Western world, in the US, in Canada, regardless of how qualified they could be, you find that the preoccupation of the white man is that they are meant for these low jobs, you get it. So it is, and when it comes to politics, the same thing. Yeah, so they feel that no, this one, it is money, maybe weapons, moving around, and that is it all. And maybe being used as in their
without disturbing your point.
Yeah.
When he talked about the security, the strategic group of Africa, when they went to Russia, as one of the welcome exhibitions were guns. So that you come and look at the guns.
Which one you'll buy?
Which one should you buy? Back to your point.
Yeah, so ideally, like he says, it is very, very important to Africans, because normally development and liberation is within, not without. You don't think that the other people are going to come to really liberate you. So the people in Haiti, the conflict in Haiti is a black man's conflict. And being a black man's conflict, so there is a need for the players, the big boys on the continent, the key players on the continent, especially in matters of security and peace, to pick interest and see how they can also lend a hand in that conflict, so that we can see Haiti being as peaceful as it was, so that it can become as productive as it was before.
Ndugu Ako, you also now been, we have seen the experience of people who outside of this country. We are talking about people in the diaspora. We have talked of communities of black people living in these countries outside of Africa. You can share your experience, but I can also tell you that you will find police patrols in most of the communities where Africans are living. Even when there is no suspicion that there's going to be a crime.
And you remember how it sparked off riots in France?
Yeah.
Seriously.
And yet you can have these white folks doing all the funny things that they are doing, and then you will find that most of the clubs, most of the entertainment in these black communities, because they know these vehicles where you can pass some of these programs of the drugs, of the guns, of so that people are killing each other more often with these guns. And then police also increase on the surveillance and arrests of most of the younger people from these communities. And it's not only in one country. This is what's happening in most of these countries outside of Africa, where you find the African populations. And even in Africa, I've seen we have known what happened in Congo, what happened in South Africa, when people were deliberately being injected with some of the diseases, and it has not stopped. So we are saying this because we want the African community, the African people, the African leadership also to have their eyes open. And I personally, we have also been discussing about this issue of these jobs outside of Africa, that we see people taking Africans to have jobs in the Arab world, where it's a good program. But you also have to be careful. One time you will found, and one was complaining, having about 200 girls being shipped away. So about 200 men who are left behind. Are you sure this not? And when you hear stories of these girls who go out there, some of them die from there, some of them have complications, some of them come back when they are mad. So these are some of the issues that we want the African people to look at, the African leadership to look at. Maybe
like these ones who drown in the Mediterranean.
In the Mediterranean every day, actually.
Escaping.
Yeah.
Yes, because they have created a situation that you be here, think of the American dream, the European dream, that when you leave this continent and you go out there, life is going to be so easy, which is not true. And you allow people to come on these waters, and many of them are women, young people with the future, with the hope of themselves, but also this continent, and you allow them die on the water. In fact, one of the countries along that water belt,
Mediterranean.
yes, said when they drown, you leave them. So these are some of the things that we're talking, and viewer, and I know many people will also have time to contribute to this. And our worry is that should this trend not be, many trends not be checked, maybe this is where Africa is heading, and we shall have no population to talk about in the nearby future. Your closing remarks.
Absolutely. Maybe to catch from where you have, before we used to talk about brain drain, where the skilled people would go,
yes,
and then they don't come back, or they are taken from here after being trained. Today, I don't know how we call it, because now it's no longer about brains.
Yes.
We are
It's
now
about the
just
humans.
taking people to Middle East, wherever they can go. And so this is a very big challenge. If you go to Dubai today, there is a significant number of Ugandan prostitutes on the street
Talk about
who
that.
move the way you see them around here. They're doing the same there, as we think they're doing decent jobs. And as I conclude, I read the book of Barack Obama, The Audacity of Hope. And in his book, that time when he was campaigning to be president, he said he wanted to address the issue of pay disparities according to race. A black person at that time in 2008 was earning 70%, a black man, 70% of what a white man was earning for the same job in the same company. And then a Latino man was earning 50% of what a white man was earning. So I think these differences are real, they are unjust, we need to address them.
Yeah, well, thank you very much, Ndugu Mututa, but my parting shot is that as black people, we need to think together, bring our efforts together, so that we can demystify some of the myths. Yes, because at times there is a myth that the white race is superior, which is actually not true. There is also a myth that nothing good can come out of Africa, which is also not true. There is actually also a myth that we can't manage ourselves, which is also, I think, not true. We can really do a good job, we can manage ourselves, and that is if we can actually become as patriotic as the likes of Kabale Gawea and the likes of Shaka Zulu. We can actually put this continent to order and be able to compete and perhaps resist the global forces.
The bad thing, the worst thing of it that you can add to that is that we hate ourselves as Africans.
Despise ourselves.
We despise ourselves. No wonder we have to bleach ourselves to look like some race. We have to, our women have to put on hair to look like some other people. Like put on nails, put literally everything. This time I'm told they're putting all the parts of the body so that they look as different. But I think all that said and done, there's a need for recovery, mental, but also physical. But has to begin with the mental. We have come to our parting time. Until next week, when we shall be back with more discussion on the Pan-African issues that affect us as the people of Africa, and how we can push the limits to the extent that we can also be able to stand on our own and also compete favorably, supporting each other and also looking for each other in this global village of ours today. Thank you so much being with us. We also thank the production team that has been behind this program. Until next week on Friday is when we shall be back with more discussion. We wish you the best of the weekend and take care until we meet. Thank you so much.
UBC is the national public broadcaster. We educate, inform, entertain, and inspire our audiences. You can watch us on free-to-air channel 001, DSTV channel 282, GoTV channel 371, Star Times channel 201, Zuku TV channel 20, and Azam TV channel 350. Even when your subscription expires, you can still watch UBC for free on your pay TV platforms.
Pick of the day on UBC.
One-on-one with Michael Jordan Lukomwao.
A weekly face-to-face conversation focusing on accountability, inspiration, information, and sensitization of the public from the various sources, such as inspirational profiles.
Having a disability is not inability.
Every Friday 9 p.m., it's one-on-one with Michael Jordan Lukomwao.
Don't you see anywhere that you would give a credit in the fight against COVID?
My role as the owner of the country is not to, be preoccupied by giving credit to my servant.
We have said that if we are to talk to General Museveni, there must be certain conditions in place.
Is it true that you paid 5 million shillings to MPs that voted for?
Was brought to you by
MTN Momo Pay is the easy way to pay. Dial *165*3# or use the MTN Momo app. You don't need cash. MTN Momo Pay is safe and free.
So this is my general perception. One, that this project entered in strategic areas of government, but that it has created a base for the now last mile strategy, which is the parish development model. And therefore this base that it has left will help us actually, and I'm sure we'll get better results in a Chole area and Adjumani when we are implementing the parish development model.